on September 20th, 1973, at the Houston Astrodome, one of the biggest exhibition tennis matches took place, where Bobby Riggs, former Wimbledon champion, challenged Billie Jean King, one of the top female tennis players of all time, that was known as the Battle of the Sexes, to see who was better on the tennis court. We'll dive into how it all happened today on Daily Sports History. Welcome to Daily Sports History. I'm Ethan Reese, your guide to help you daily learn more about sports history as you become a sports historian. Now, tennis is a unique sport, as men and women can play together relatively well, as there's not a lot of contact like in football, and your height and weight doesn't matter like in basketball. Tennis, you have your side, and your opponent has their side, and who has the best skill. Now, men usually have a faster serve and more power, but power does not necessarily mean wins. Now, Bobby Riggs was one of the best tennis players through the 1940s. He was ranked number 1 in the world 3 times and won 6 major titles throughout his career, including 3 Wimbledon titles, and would retire in 1951, but was always in the tennis world. In 1973, he actually stated that the female game was inferior to the men, and that at age 55, he could still beat the top female tennis player, who at the time was Billie Jean King, who is known as one of the greatest women's tennis players of all time. She won 39 Grand Slams throughout her career, winning over 700 matches. So Riggs obviously challenged her at the time, and she declined, and Margaret Court actually stepped in and accepted a $20,000 guarantee for the match, more than she earned for winning the French and Australian Opens that year. And Margaret had won over 24 Grand Slams throughout her career. And at the time, she was 30 years old and had just come back from having her first child. And the match actually happened on Mother's Day in California and was televised by CBS Sports. In a match that became known as the Mother's Day Massacre, as Riggs dominated from the jump, winning 6-2 in the first set and 6-1 in the second set, where Court really didn't have much of a chance. Because of this, it made it even more popular, as Riggs said, "Look, I beat the best there was, so the women's game is inferior." And because he kept saying this, Billie Jean King accepted a lucrative offer with the match, a winner-take-all of $100,000 in a primetime event on ABC, as she wanted to take him down because she knew the women could beat men, especially out of prime men. Now, Jean was 29 before this all happened and was ranked number 1 in the world. And though this was the second matchup, this is the one everyone remembers, as it was more advertised, more televised, and Billie Jean King was more notoriety, as Court had missed the previous season due to giving birth to a child. And there was a great flair for this event. Billie Jean entered in a Cleopatra-style feather-adorned leader, which is one of those things you see kings and queens in the olden days have, where people are carrying them and they sit atop of it. And Riggs entered on a rickshaw and presented King with a giant lollipop, and she gave him a squealing pig. Now, Billie Jean was given $50,000 to wear a sugar daddy jacket. Now, sugar daddies isn't what you think of today. This was manufactured by the Tootsie Roll Company and was mainly just a brick of a caramel tasting flavor on a stick, kind of like a lollipop, but with caramel. That was very popular at the time. Now, the event happened on September 20th, 1973, at the Houston Astrodome. The first set started, and Riggs actually began with a lot of confidence. It came out with the lead, but King actually came back and used her strategy, as Riggs wasn't in peak condition, and made him run around the entire court, having long rallies and tiring him out, and would win 6-4. And she took this momentum after winning the first one, and in the second set, Riggs showed his fatigue. He was trying trick shots and going for smashes and trying everything he could to use his power over the volleys. But Billie Jean continued her strategy of running him around and attacking his weak serves with powerful returns, and won the second set 6-3. Now, unlike in the previous Battle of the Sexes, where they played by the women's rules, where you played best of 3, in this one, Billie Jean agreed to play by the men's rule, best of 5. So they would play a third set. So despite winning 2 rounds, normally she would have won the match. On the women's circuit, she had to play at least one more. And by the start of this one, Riggs was completely tired, and King kept running him around back and forth, doing long rallies as much as she could, and Riggs was no match. She won the third set, 6-3. And the match was a major success for the tennis community, and this was a great moment for women's tennis in general. At the time, women were not getting paid as much as the men. Currently, women and men get the same prize money for winning a Grand Slam, and they are the closest between any sport, between men and women, in their payout discrepancy. Although men are paid a little bit more overall, it is much less than any other sport in the world. And this was a huge moment, as an estimated 90 million people worldwide watched this event, and over 30,000 in attendance, which was the largest audience event for a U.S. tennis match in the United States. But this was a great moment for tennis in general, and it went on to create some documentaries and a movie starring Emma Stone and Steve Carell in 2017. But this wasn't the last battle of the sexes. As September 25th, 1992, Martina Navratilova and Jimmy Connors actually faced off as well in the, quote, third battle of the sexes. Now, this was more of an evenly matched play, as Jimmy was only 40 years old and Martina Navratilova was 35. And they made this a pay-per-view event, and each player was paid $650,000 guaranteed, with $500,000 going to the winner. And Jimmy Connors actually won in straight sets. And this is something that is done every now and then. There have been many exhibitions that have done more recently. Li Nai of China actually beat Novak Djokovic in a single set match in Beijing in 2013. But now they're normally just smaller events done for charity, as we haven't had a real battle of the sexes in a while. But it just goes to show you that men and women can play on the same court, and shows the uniqueness of tennis to allow this as a possibility. And if you want to learn more about tennis, I want to tell you all about the podcast Tennis Culture, where Nelson and Reza, 2 Australians with great accents, use their experience in tennis knowledge to go over all that's happening in tennis. It's a great way if you love to know what's going on in tennis now, as they do it in a fun and unique way. And if you like to hear Australians talk, there's no better place to listen than to the Tennis Culture Podcast. And we'll have a link below if you want to check them out. And if you like this episode, please let us know by leaving us a review. And if you want, you can tell us a topic you want us to cover in that review. Leave us your name and the topic, and we will get that done just for you. More daily sports history. And come back Monday for more daily sports history.